The training hall shook with the sound of laughter, loud and sharp, bouncing off the steel walls like a cruel echo meant to break anyone standing in the center. She stood there alone, surrounded by alien recruits with armored skins, glowing eyes, and claws sharp enough to carve metal. Yet she held still, breathing slow, refusing to show even a flicker of fear. The air smelled like hot energy coils and fresh oil, the scent of machines waiting to be unleashed, and the alien commander walked toward her with the heavy footsteps of someone who loved being feared. He towered over her, his shadow stretching across the floor like a warning, his voice dripping with amusement as he mocked her size, her silence, her simple Earth-made uniform that had no shining plates or blades. Every alien in the hall leaned forward as he lifted his plasma spear, spinning the weapon in one hand like he was showing her what true strength looked like. But she didn't blink, she didn't move, she didn't answer those insults, and that silence made the commander grin wider, because he thought she was weak, he thought she was breaking, he thought this moment would finally crush the human spirit inside her. He pointed the spear at her chest, letting its glowing tip hover inches from her heart, the weapon humming with deadly power, and the room erupted in laughter again as if they were watching a spectacle meant only for entertainment. She looked at the weapon, not the commander, her eyes calm, deep, ancient in a way the aliens could not understand, and something in that calm made a few laughs around her soften without reason. He shoved the weapon closer, expecting her to flinch, but she only tilted her head as if studying a familiar shape, something she had seen before in a memory she never spoke about. Then he pushed it to her face, close enough to burn her skin, expecting fear, expecting panic, expecting surrender. Instead, she smiled. A small quiet smile that felt completely out of place in that cold metallic hall, and the commander's hand tightened around the spear without knowing why his chest suddenly felt heavier. She reached out and gently touched the weapon, her fingers steady, her breath soft, and for a moment the humming plasma flickered like the weapon itself recognized her. The room went silent, every alien frozen mid-laugh, watching the one thing none of them expected from a human cadet. The weapon pulsed in her hand, and something inside it answered back. Along the metal walls, and every alien cadet stepped back as if something ancient had just woken up. The commander's grin faded, replaced by a slow tightening around his jaw, because the weapon was never supposed to react to a human. It wasn't even designed to read human biosignatures, yet it hummed in her hand like it recognized her heartbeat. She held it steady, calm as ever, the glow coating her skin in soft waves of light, and her expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did, something deep and quiet that carried the weight of a hidden truth. The silence in the hall grew heavier by the second, as if the entire academy held its breath, waiting to see if the weapon would shut down or explode in her grip. The commander stepped closer, slow and cautious, his voice lower this time, almost forced, asking how she activated a weapon built for warriors from 5 different star systems. She didn't answer, she only shifted her hand slightly, and the light brightened again, sending another ripple across the floor. The other cadets exchanged nervous looks, claws retracting, wings folding tight, tails curling toward their bodies, because none of them wanted to be near a human holding a weapon that suddenly behaved like a living thing. It wasn't fear of the weapon that unsettled them, it was fear of her, the girl they had spent weeks laughing at, the one who didn't belong here, the one they believed was fragile. But fragility didn't glow like that, not in any species they knew. The commander tried to take the spear back, gripping the handle with both hands, yet it didn't move, it didn't even twitch, as if the weapon chose her and refused to listen to him anymore. His eyes widened as he pulled harder, veins tightening against his armor, but her hand didn't shift a single inch, her stance steady like she was rooted into the floor itself. That was when a soft sound drifted through the hall, a faint chime from the spear's core, a sound none of them had ever heard before, a sound that felt almost like a whisper, delicate but full of warning. Her eyes lifted to the commander, calm and unshaken, and she spoke for the first time since stepping into the academy. "It's not reacting to you," she said quietly, her voice steady and strangely warm. "It's reacting to Earth." The weapon pulsed again, stronger this time. The glow from the weapon swelled brighter, washing the training hall in waves of pale blue light, and for a moment it felt as if the air itself thickened with something old, something hidden, something that didn't belong to this academy or this world. The alien commander loosened his grip, his claws trembling slightly, because he could feel it now too, a hum beneath the metal, a pulse that matched the quiet rhythm of the human cadet's heartbeat. She stood there without fear, her fingers relaxed around the weapon's handle, and the light climbing up her arms made it seem like she was connected to something far beyond the academy's cold walls. The cadets watched in stunned silence, their earlier laughter now replaced by a restless tension that crawled across their scales and skin. The commander stepped back, the confidence in his voice cracking as he demanded an explanation. But the girl didn't look at him. Not yet, her focus locked on the spear as if it were showing her something only she could see. For a second her breath caught, her eyes narrowing like she recognized the pattern of the flickering lights, the rhythm of the pulses, the strange warmth running up her arm. She wasn't surprised by it. She was remembering it. That was what terrified the others most. The way her expression softened into something almost familiar, as if this moment was not new to her at all. The blue glow suddenly shifted, spiraling into thin lines along the shaft of the spear, forming symbols the aliens had never seen before. They stepped closer and squinted, their claws tapping anxiously against the floor, because the markings didn't match any alien script, any Empire record, any known language across the Council sectors. But the human cadet knew them. She whispered the translation under her breath, barely audible, yet the entire room heard every syllable. Signal link established. The commander froze, his throat tightening, because the weapon wasn't a transmitter, it wasn't even capable of long-range communication, and yet the lights on the walls flickered like an unseen channel had forced itself open. Then, out of nowhere, a low vibration rolled through the hall, deeper and heavier than anything their academy systems could create, a sound that made every alien look toward the ceiling in pure disbelief. A voice, faint, distant, unmistakably human, crackled through the weapon in her hand. "Cadet, do you copy?" The hall erupted in chaos, and the weapon flared white. The white flare from the weapon poured across the hall like a burst of living light, sharp enough to sting alien eyes and freeze every breath in the room. The human cadet held it tightly, steady even as the air vibrated around her, the voice echoing through the metal floor and climbing into her chest like a forgotten heartbeat returning home. The alien commander staggered back, his armor scraping against the ground as he tried to make sense of the impossible. Because no human signal could reach this academy, no human ship had clearance to come within 10 systems of their training sector, and no human voice should be echoing through a weapon the galaxy built without Earth's help. Yet the voice continued, faint but clear, carrying a warmth that didn't belong in this cold hall. "Cadet, respond. Your signal just reactivated. You're not alone out there." She swallowed hard, her calm beginning to crack around the edges, emotions rising like a tide she had tried to keep buried. Memories of Earth flashed behind her eyes, the blue oceans, the steel training yards, the old instructors who taught her to hold her breath in moments like this. She didn't answer the weapon, not yet, because she could feel every alien eye locked on her, their fear thick and heavy in the air. They didn't understand the voice, but they understood its meaning. Humans were not silent, humans were not gone, humans were not weak. The commander regained his footing, anger mixing with fear in his voice as he demanded the girl drop the weapon and step away. His claws clicked nervously, his tail coiled behind him, the posture of someone who suddenly realized the thing he mocked might be the very thing that could destroy him. She turned to him slowly, her face shadowed by the fading light, and for the first time since arriving at the academy, her voice shook, not from fear, but from something deeper, something that lived between loyalty and destiny. "I didn't activate this," she said softly, gripping the spear as it pulsed again. "Earth did." The walls around them shimmered, energy lines racing across the panels as if the academy systems were being hacked from the outside, or from somewhere far older. A piercing alarm erupted, lights flashing in violent red streaks, and a message flooded the main screen overhead. Unidentified human signal locking onto the academy. The cadets gasped, the commander froze, and the girl's eyes widened as a second human voice came through. Deeper, colder, unmistakably military. "Cadet, hold position. Earth command is coming." The alarm lights washed the hall in violent red flashes, painting every face with fear, confusion, and something darker crawling underneath. The alien commander tried to shout orders, but his voice cracked as the academy trembled, a deep rumble rolling through the floor like a giant engine awakening far below them. The cadets huddled back, wings folding tight, claws scraping the ground, their eyes darting between the shaking walls and the lone human holding a weapon that now glowed like a burning star. She could feel it too, a pulse rising through the spear, steady, powerful, almost protective, as if Earth itself was reaching through the metal to shield her. The second voice crackled through the weapon again, calmer this time, firm with authority, carrying the weight of someone who had commanded fleets. "Cadet, identify your position. We have your signal. We are inbound." Her heart thumped hard against her ribs, because she knew that voice. She had heard it in training broadcasts, in old recordings from Earth's defense archives. It belonged to a high-ranking officer, someone the galaxy believed had vanished years ago. And if he was coming, then Earth wasn't just watching. They were answering. The alien commander stepped forward, trying to regain control, but fear lined every movement. His claws clicked hesitantly as he pointed at her, demanding she surrender the weapon, insisting she was a threat to the Academy. But his voice trembled, and the cadets behind him didn't move, didn't support him, didn't trust him. They were watching her instead, watching the way the weapon's light curled around her like a shield, watching the way her breathing shifted into something sharper, deeper, shaped by training none of them understood. She raised her head slowly, meeting the commander's eyes, and the red lights reflected in her gaze like two burning worlds. "I warned you," she whispered, her voice low, steady, almost heartbreakingly calm. "You misread humanity." Before the commander could respond, the ground beneath them split with a violent crack, metal plates bending upward as if something massive pushed from deep below. The entire hall lurched to one side, alarms screaming louder, screens flickering in bursts of static and blue interference. A shockwave blasted through the academy, sending recruits crashing into walls and knocking the commander off his feet. The lights snapped off. Then, one by one, enormous blue beams lit up the ceiling. A pattern, a code, a symbol carved into the academy structure. A symbol every alien in the galaxy feared. The crest of Earth's shadow fleet. The human cadet lifted her eyes as the ceiling groaned. And something started to break through. The ceiling split open with a slow, thunderous crack, metal bending like paper as something colossal pushed through the academy's upper decks. Dust and sparks rained down, drifting through the red emergency light like falling embers, and the cadet stared upward with wide, terrified eyes. The alien commander scrambled back on his hands, armor scraping the ground, unable to comprehend what force could tear through reinforced war-grade steel. But she knew. She felt it in the steady pulse of the weapon she held, in the quiet thrum beneath her feet, in the way the air itself changed as the shadow of a ship older than their academy darkened the room. A massive silhouette lowered into view, its hull black as deep space, lined with blue energy veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. It hovered just inches above the torn ceiling, silent, steady, impossibly controlled. A warship that moved with the elegance of something alive. The cadets whispered its name with trembling voices. The ship that was rumored, doubted, feared, dismissed. The ship no alien had ever seen and survived. A shadow fleet vessel. The weapon in her hand responded instantly, projecting a wave of blue light that wrapped around her like a soft armor. And for the first time, the fear in her chest shifted into something warmer, something steadier, pride. The commander tried to stand, but his knees buckled as a beam of blue light descended from the ship, striking the floor beside her in a column of shimmering energy. The air hummed, vibrating through bone and metal, and a voice emerged from the ship's comms. Clear, calm, unmistakably human. "Shadow Lance to Cadet. Your signal was received. We are here." Her throat tightened. Weeks of silence, humiliation, isolation, all of it cracked inside her at once, replaced by a flood of emotion she fought to keep steady. She stepped into the beam, the light lifting her hair, brushing against her skin like a touch from home. Around her, the aliens watched in stunned silence, their laughter replaced by awe, fear, and something close to respect. The commander's voice finally broke through, weak and shaking. Why would Earth send them for you?" She turned her head slightly, her voice soft but strong, every word carrying the weight of a world that refused to bow. "Because I'm not alone. No human ever is." The beam flared brighter, the ship's engines rumbled like a distant storm, and the academy trembled around her as she rose slowly toward the waiting vessel. And in that rising light, she felt it, the quiet truth every human carried across the stars. Humanity answers its own. Always. The beam lifted her higher, carrying her through drifting sparks and the hollow echo of the collapsing ceiling, until she rose into the open air above the academy. The alien cadets below watched in stunned silence, their faces washed in blue light as the Shadow Fleet vessel opened like a living machine, its armor plates shifting aside with smooth, graceful movements no alien technology could match. The wind from the ship's engines whipped through her hair, carrying the faint scent of cold metal and something familiar, the sharp, clean smell she remembered from Earth's deep space training bays. Her heart thudded against her ribs, not in fear, but in recognition, as if the ship itself knew her name before she had ever set foot inside. She crossed the threshold and stepped onto the deck, the floor humming beneath her boots with a steady rhythm, warm and powerful, like a heartbeat synced with her own. The interior glowed softly, patterns of blue light running along the walls in lines that shifted like flowing water, forming symbols she had seen only once, in the archives forbidden to low-ranking cadets. This was no ordinary warship. This was a relic. A legend. A vessel that shouldn't exist anymore, not according to the galaxy's history books, not according to the Council, not according to anyone but Earth's oldest ghosts. A figure stepped forward through the misted corridor, tall, calm, wrapped in a uniform marked with the emblem she thought she'd never see again. His voice was steady when he spoke, carrying the kind of quiet authority that could still a battlefield. "Cadet," he said, "welcome aboard." Her breath caught. She knew that face. Every human did. Admiral Holt, the architect of Earth's disappearance, the man who led the Shadow Fleet into the void decades ago and was declared dead across every star system. You vanished," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. He stepped closer, the ship's light reflecting in his eyes. Not warm, not cold, focused. "We never vanished," he said softly. "We went silent. On purpose." The walls answered his words with a low hum, lights shifting into patterns she had seen etched into old Earth records. Warnings, predictions, contingency codes long thought obsolete. Her stomach knotted, dread curling with awe, because she suddenly understood. They hadn't come for her because she was in danger. They had come because something far bigger had awakened inside that weapon. Admiral Holt lowered his voice. "Cadet, tell me exactly who gave you authorization to activate Earth's signal key." She froze. Signal key. She had never heard of it, yet the weapon in her hand pulsed, like it had been waiting for her. The corridor seemed to tighten around her the moment the Admiral spoke, the lights dimming into a softer blue, as if the ship itself understood the weight of his question. She held the weapon close, its pulse warming her palm, steady but unsettling, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. The Admiral studied her face with a calm that carried storms beneath the surface, the kind of silence that came before history changed direction. She tried to speak, tried to explain that she hadn't activated anything, that she had only touched the weapon because the commander forced it on her, but the words tangled in her throat. The truth felt bigger than her, heavier than anything she had trained for. "I didn't activate it," she finally said, her voice low, strained. "It responded to me." Admiral Holt exhaled slowly, the sound soft but filled with a weight that rippled down the corridor. He stepped closer, his presence steady, controlled, like a man carrying a secret too old to share easily. "That weapon," he said quietly, "was built from technology we buried for a reason. It should only awaken for one kind of signal, and one person." Her heart skipped, a cold shiver running along her spine as she searched his face for answers. But his eyes didn't give any, only questions. Questions she didn't know how to answer. The ship hummed again, deeper this time, as though pressing its own quiet warning into the floor beneath her boots. The Admiral placed a steady hand on the wall, and the metal shifted, revealing a single glowing map, a star chart she had never seen, edges burned, center swirling with dark red markers. Every red marker pulsed like a heartbeat. "Those are the worlds where our hidden beacons activated," Holt said softly. "And they all lit up the moment that weapon recognized you." Her chest tightened, breath growing shallow, as the weight of what that meant sank through her bones. She wasn't just holding some old relic. She was holding something that woke Earth's oldest defenses the Shadow Fleet hid for decades. Something humanity had sworn never to use unless the galaxy crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The Admiral's voice dropped even lower. "Cadet, the signal key only chooses someone with authorization written into their DNA." She shook her head, backing up a step, her voice barely a whisper. "That's not possible. I'm nobody." The weapon pulsed again, brighter than before, answering her denial with its own truth. Holt's gaze sharpened, not unkind, but full of a revelation he feared to speak aloud. "You're not nobody," he said. "You're the reason Earth went silent." The corridor fell into stillness, and the ship itself seemed to hold its breath. The air inside the corridor shifted, sharp, electric, like the ship itself sensed the truth breaking open between them. The human cadet stood frozen, breath shallow, the weight of the Admiral's words crushing through every memory she had ever trusted. "The reason Earth went silent." The phrase echoed inside her like a distant explosion, each repetition louder, heavier, more impossible. She opened her mouth, desperate to deny it again, but the ship rumbled beneath her feet, a deep groan that felt like an ancient beast waking after centuries of sleep. Lights along the walls flared white-hot. Alarms began to whisper, and the weapon in her grip throbbed with a violent heat that made her fingers tremble. Admiral Holt turned sharply toward the nearest console, his face tightening as new symbols flashed across the glowing surface. "They found us," he said, voice low but steady, the calm of a man who'd survived the impossible more than once. A tremor rolled through the ship, shaking dust from the ceiling. Outside the corridor window, a growing cloud of shadows swirled, alien warforms uncloaking one by one, massive silhouettes spreading across the Academy skies like a plague. Dozens. Then hundreds. Their armor glowed with the red crest of the Council's execution fleet, the unit sent only when an empire felt genuinely threatened. The cadet stepped beside the Admiral, heart racing, fear and determination tangling inside her chest. "Are they here for me?" she asked, voice barely above a breath. His jaw tightened. "They're here for what awakened because of you." Before she could respond, the ship jolted violently as enemy fire slammed into its hull, sending a burst of sparks shooting down the corridor. Blue shields flared to life outside the windows, stretching across the vessel like luminous wings, shielding them for the moment, but only just. The Admiral turned, gripping her shoulders, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Listen to me. You need to reach the core chamber. The signal key will only stabilize if you stand at its center. If it destabilizes, this ship, every beacon, every human defense system, goes critical." Another impact tore down the hall, metal screaming as an explosion shattered a bulkhead behind them. Smoke poured through the breach, followed by the thunderous march of alien shock troopers pouring into the ship. The Admiral pushed her forward. "Run!" She sprinted down the corridor as lights flickered overhead, the weapon blazing in her hand, guiding her like it knew the way. Enemy fire streaked past her. The ship shuddered again, and the deck split beneath her as a massive clawed hand burst through the floor. An alien commander dragged himself up through the metal, eyes burning red, voice shaking with fury. "You," he hissed, pointing the crackling spear at her, "are the human who will end this galaxy." The ship went silent. The weapon screamed with light, and the world exploded around her. The explosion swallowed everything in a roar of fire and light, the blast throwing her backward into a shower of sparks as the corridor folded in on itself. For a heartbeat she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only felt the tremble of the ship beneath her spine and the burning weight of the weapon still locked in her hand. Smoke curled around her, thick and choking, but the blade of blue light pulsing from the weapon cut through the haze like a beacon, calling her back to her feet. The alien commander rose from the flames, body armored in heat-scorched metal, eyes glowing with a fury meant to end her. But she didn't step back. She didn't hide. She stood tall, chest shaking with adrenaline and fear and something deeper, something that felt like every generation of humanity standing behind her. The ship lights flickered, dimming to a deep blue that washed the corridor in a strange calm, the calm before a storm that felt older than any war. The alien commander lunged forward, spear raised high, roaring a battle cry that echoed through the ship's wounded frame. She lifted the signal key, and for the first time, she didn't wonder what it was or why it chose her. She simply trusted it. Blue fire erupted from the weapon, a radiant burst that cracked the floor beneath her and wrapped her in a shield of shimmering light. The alien strike hit the shield and shattered, sparks flying in every direction as the force sent him staggering backward. She stepped forward, voice steady, quiet, full of something that didn't sound like fear at all. "You don't understand humanity," she whispered, the light growing brighter around her. "You never did." The energy from the key surged through the corridor, sweeping toward the ship's heart, weaving itself into the ancient circuits that only responded to human touch. The Shadow Fleet vessel roared awake, engines bursting with blue flame as the entire ship came alive like a creature remembering its purpose. From the command deck, Admiral Holt's voice echoed through every speaker, filled with awe and something close to reverence. "Cadet, the fleet hears you." The alien commander tried to rise again, but the ship answered her instead, a thunderous pulse blasting him back into the collapsing metal until the fire swallowed him whole. She didn't watch him fall. She turned toward the core chamber, walking through drifting ash and shaking steel, every step guided by the soft hum of the signal key. When she reached the center of the ship, the lights lowered, the hum softened, and for the first time since the Academy, she felt peace. She placed the weapon into the heart of the chamber, and blue light spiraled outward in slow, beautiful rings. Earth was no longer silent, and as the ship carried her toward the stars, she whispered the truth the galaxy had forgotten, a truth carried on her breath like a promise to every world watching. Humanity doesn't disappear. We endure.